It's Friday here at Gen Con 2024, and it's time for an annual visit with Cubicle 7 and my good friend Dominic McDowell. Dom, wait a second, you're not Dom.
I'm not dumb.
TS Luikart, good to see you, my friend.
Hey, Jeff.
Unfortunately, Dom's not here in the U.S. this
But
time around, but yes, TS is, and that's fine because we're going to cover all the bases with
the
you.
latest. Awesome.
So let's start off. We've got, I think, isn't like the big release here, Life Well Lived?
It is indeed. So A Life Well Lived is a new 5e toolkit that we just brought out. And a big thing that, like in 5e games, if you were to talk to anybody that plays, usually say, so what do you do in your short rest or your long rest? Mm-hmm. People go, okay, we do the long rest. Okay, but what do you do? And it'll look like deer in headlights.
What are you talking about? I roll to get hit points back.
Exactly.
I get my spells back.
Exactly.
That's what I do.
Exactly, that's what we do. But so what we said is, you know what, there's actually more to that, more in the game. So we have an entire book here that has campfire events that you'd think of maybe short-term events, but then there's also basically long-term events, extended ones that are really what you would do between adventures or what you would do on a long rest. So some of them are very complex and definitely like between adventures. So that's a whole section of the book, and then we kind of modularized it. So there's a section if you want to build a base, because a lot of folks know 5e games, you tend to accumulate a lot of money. So if you actually build a big base, you actually have upkeep, but also you get advantages for, say, having your own alchemist shop. You know, so and then
you have things to spend all those thousands and thousands of gold pieces
and
on.
effectively that'll roll into gameplay too, because you're like, well, actually we're well rested and we have an armory, so we roll out pretty well. And then eventually we did something few people talk about. We decided you should be able to retire a character in D&D. So there's a whole section on what you do after retirement, you know, open up a tavern, but also like of retirement, but also even the classic, we're getting the band back together, like one last mission years later. So that was really fun to do. So A Life Well Lived has all of that in it, and so far it's been doing really well at the show. In part, it kind of follows one we did that's been really popular that was talked on the Gaming Gang before, Uncharted Journeys, which is our big travel book that I bet you a lot of you guys have heard of or maybe already own. So yeah, that's been really great. So it's kind of the fall on to that.
And then you also have a Kickstarter. It hasn't wrapped up yet for Victoriana's new edition?
Yeah, exactly. So the Victoriana Kickstarter, for those who know the fourth edition, is actually going on right now. And from when you guys see this, it should have like 5 days left in it. And it is, Victoriana is really neat. If you don't know, a really easy pitch on it is steampunk Shadowrun with multiple social tiers of like the bourgeoisie versus nobles. So it's a very different feel.
For 5e.
For 5e.
I think that's important to note,
yeah,
too.
It is 5e, but Walt Sinowski, one of our longtime compatriot freelancers, completely redid 5e Magic. It's actually a mana system. And we think the second most people see it, they're going to yoink it for their games. A lot of people that are not so big on Vancian Fire and Forget will be like, oh yeah, alternate, going to use this. It's really good.
Bye-bye spell slots.
Yeah, exactly. So that's literally going on right now as you see this, probably pretty likely a couple of days left in it. So Kickstarter, you can find it, Victoriana.
And yes, there's news on the Gaming Gang. There's an article, I mentioned it.
Yeah, you mentioned it a few times. Awesome.
Now there's a release, it's not brand new, but I do know that you have very few copies left here at the show.
It's moving very fast. So our newest 40K game, Imperium Maledictum, which is kind of like the Dark Heresy inheritor in many ways, is at the show. It's our newest one. People want us to produce way more books for it because they love it so much. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, it's selling so fast. Here we are on Friday. It may survive at 1 or 2 copies to Saturday. It's all but gone. We've been selling really fast.
Right.
So yeah, it's going over really well.
Yeah, and there's somebody I know who did some work on that.
Yeah, who did that?
Trying to remember who that would be.
Oh yeah, that would be me. I did all the lore, huge chunk of the lore. I'm the oldest inheritor. I did Dark Heresy back in the day, for those of you that know Dark Heresy. So I'm kind of the last standing team member that worked on Dark Heresy as well as I am. So old, but still clicking along.
What else is cooking with Cubicle 7?
I'd say we keep talking about new stuff left and right. We just finished The Laundry, which is Charlie Strauss's Laundry. And that went over really well. Yeah, the second edition of The Laundry. And that went over really, really well too. So to say nothing of all the stuff for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and Wrath and Glory coming on, so we're firing on a lot of cylinders. Oh yeah, and Soulbound, which is the Age of Sigmar RPG, and if you guys have followed GW, you know GW has a brand new edition of Age of Sigmar out, so that's really hot right now.
Yep.
So we're busy.
I'm always really happy to see new Wifrip stuff out. I'm like, oh yeah, cool, new Wifrip.
Clicking right along. Yeah, within the next 2 months, there will be, for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, there's going to be Reichland Miscellanea, which is a book that a bunch of different articles that were intended to be electronic PDF only, but so many people are like, please give it to us in print, that we finally folded and collected like 12 into that book. And then one a lot of people are hot for, Tribes and Tribulations, which is basically the green skin, ogres, and troll book for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay.
And both of those are currently available in PDF.
Yes, they
over
are
at
on drive-through.
RPG.
Yep, he is on it. They are on drive-through, but which also means they're on pre-order to get the physical very soon here within the next couple of months.
So there is one thing I did want to talk, I mean, just real quickly.
Yep.
I know a lot of times you guys will release the PDFs, and it's usually months before the actual hard copy comes out, which is unusual for the industry. And I think it's important to point out to people that when you have something come out on drive-through, you're doing that because you want to make sure that any little error, little mistake here and there is going to be addressed before it goes to the printer.
It certainly has come up that when you get people say, oh no, you're just kind of using the crowd. Actually, what it comes down to is thousands and thousands of eyes will catch far more than even the most experienced editors and in-house readers. Like, the reality is, you all will find way more than we do. Some people accuse us, maybe rightfully, of going, yeah, but you're using us as quality control. It's like, yeah, but you're quality control that we can't actually replicate within the game industry. We need all those eyes to do that. So,
and something else I would also add is, would people rather have a print copy arrive in their hands and then sit there and go, what's with all the typographical errors?
That is simply put as late once, screwed up forever.
Yeah, right.
So rather to wait it off some to come in, not, and unfortunately or not, you guys might have seen in drive-through too, we have a thing come out that the first review says this could be so good, but it has errors.
Yes.
And literally 2 months later, the guy will go, all my, goes from 2 to 5 stars, all my complaints addressed, it's great. That happens a lot.
Let's be honest, there's a lot of publishers that will release a PDF, and if there's an issue, and people will comment, it's just cricket.
Yeah, so, fire and forget. They're like, well, we're on to other things. But we do actively care to get back around to make certain they're as smooth as we can. So I hope people are ultimately pleased with the final product in each case. Our reviews bear out that they usually are.
I was going to say, my reviews usually bear that out, yes. Not all of them.
No, nobody hits all the time.
Your check's never clear.
I don't think anybody hits all the time, but we try very hard to hit as much as we can. High percentage.
It's pretty obvious to this point now, because you guys have been growing and growing and growing. Hell of a lot more hits than misses.
Yep, so far so good. We're up for 2 Ennies tonight, actually. And the ongoing march, yeah, we'll see. Thank you.
Fingers crossed. Any final words you want to share with the audience, TS?
You know, as much as anything, I think of myself and a lot of what we do is we're kind of the mummers behind the scene. I want you guys to be able to cross the stage and look good. So ultimately, most of what Cubicle 7 does is to set up the stage and the scaffold and the lights so you guys can do your thing. We're tool builders as much as anything that we dictate. We want you guys to do it. So that's really our ethos. Do the best tools we can for you guys is what it comes down to. So.
Well, TS, thank you very kindly for taking time out. Go sell those last 2 copies of Imperium Maledictum.
Go get on that. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.